All right, let's try this again. Episode 23 with David Andreozzi from Andreozzi Architects. We are kind of at part 2 now. We've had some connection issues, the joys of Instagram Live and the connections that it takes. But hopefully we can get these things ironed out. If not, worst case scenario, we can plan to have them on another time. But I'm really crossing my fingers we can get this going, because I feel like we're just scratching the surface of a bunch of amazing conversation. And now that I've reset this live, hopefully I'm going to try and let's keep our fingers crossed. Oh, I hear birds chirping.
I want a mulligan.
Here we go. This is the beginning of part 2. So we've given ourselves another hour, and if we want to go farther than that, we can. But it sounds good. I can hear you. I can see you. There's no lag.
I have 27% on my phone, so let's see how long that lasts.
All right, let's do it. Yes. So we were talking about this job I'm just at now. Super high-end project with really bad paint job. And you were getting into how important it is for the architect and, like you said, the builder. I think the GC in this case is probably the issue. And what does that look like? What is it? I want to talk to you about a lot of stuff. But let's finish that point, and then we can move on.
So hiring the right contractor is the most important thing in that case, because they're the ones that are setting the tone with the subs. So getting that person, and so as I was saying, is that we have certain contractors that will deal with certain subs for small jobs. We have other contractors for medium-sized jobs, and we have other contractors for more sophisticated jobs. And once the client is on board with that level, and that's what I'm selling from the beginning, you need to get a contractor and a team on board that is going to be providing you the best quality product for the money you have. And so once you've committed to that, and you're not nickel and diming, and the contract, and this is another thing that I do that helps this process, is that I have the contractor set up budget in the very beginning, an open, transparent spreadsheet to the client, and go, this is what it's going to cost for your black oak black walnut floors, and this is the finishing, and this is the cost of millwork and the kitchen and the expensive appliances. And so once you have this datum set forth, and we try and set that forth right after schematic design before we even start working drawings, what that does is it sets you in later on down the road, there are numbers there for them to bring you on board at the appropriate level. And to me, that's where the key is. If they're looking now, I mean, this is where the problem is. If they've done it for a fixed bid and they are including you for a price, and they want to save a couple, $10,000, $20,000 on a big job and go with Jimmy down the street, well, then you're screwed.
Trying to practice patience with our errors. Yeah. So that's the issue. Is it's guys like me, we have to have great relationships with the contractors, or I mostly have the relationships with the designers and directly with the clients. That's when we're more often brought in, because I've bid a couple projects for a couple of the big guys that we've talked about that you work with and stuff, and
right,
we're not price competitive because we're a piece of paper with a higher number, and it's tough for clients to wrap their heads around that. It is part of the big scope of things, and everyone's just like, oh, okay, go with this guy, this is fine. It's a very interesting the paint world. I feel like so often paint just gets like just painted is like this thing that happens.
I would say that there has to be the relationship set forth between you and these big contractors. So if you can say, listen, you know the quality that we're doing. If you could just, when the opportunity comes up, give me the opportunity to explain to the clients the difference. And if I just have that opportunity, I don't care if I lose 9 out of 10, but at least the clients will hear it. And if you're there and you're presenting it not in a way that I'm better, but as you always do present, with facts and science, it gives the client the ability to decide if they're going to spend the extra money. In my cases, especially at the level that you're at, which would be the level of my higher end projects, because you're delivering a very, very high end, wonderful product. Our clients are very willing to spend the extra if they're convinced that it's going to be more enduring or it's going to be a better finish. But you need an advocate for you, and the question is, who is that advocate? And I guess it could be me, but in most cases, it's probably going to be the contractor that comes to me and says, "Listen, I have 3 prices for the outside painting, but Zach's. I think we should go with Zach, but we need to run this by the client, and we'll talk about it." And in that case, I will present the argument to the client that, listen, the contractor has these 3 prices, but he thinks you should seriously consider the higher end because he's bought into the product that you're selling. And it's not about just saving money. I mean, I lose a lot of my work based on the fact that other architects are cheaper than me. And it is what it is. I mean, I've charged the same amount, basically the same amount to my clients for 30 years. I've never been different to other clients, different clients at different times, very slight differences gradually through time. My point is that it is what it is, and it's tough to lose the project. But you were bringing up the point on an earlier broadcast where you were saying it's very difficult to lose work, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'll sit down with my wife Cheryl, who's been involved with the business for 30 years, and David, who's been the Rizzo, who I mentioned earlier, who's been with me for 23 years, and we may have just interviewed for a project, and we go, you know what? It's the nice house on the island, but there's something just not right about it. Like, you can tell there could be a little something in the personality that you go, this is a high probability of not ending well. Or they'll come back and go, well, I'll give it to you, but you need to reduce your percentage by 2 points. And my response is, well, you came to me because of the 15 projects that you liked in my portfolio, and they all got charged the same amount of money, and you want a discount? And they're like, oh, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. So somehow you have to have that in your artillery, but you also have to be, and that argument has actually won me projects. I mean, they said, no, that's a really good point. That's fair, and you should be making money. There's a lot of other arguments that I've used. I mean, anyway. So you need to have a lot of things to rationalize your fee, for sure. But you have to be prepared to say goodbye. And each time that we say goodbye to somebody, it's not literal. You can just tell that they get the vibes from us that it's not right. We all look at each other and go, God, the economy sucks and we really could use this. But afterwards, every single time you hear that the project melted down with other people, I'm sorry, that's the way it is. They're either, and we don't get a lot of projects. We're a small firm. I mean, we probably have 5 to 6 projects going on at one time. We're a team of 5 or so, and we're all working on the project together. We work on everything together. So so when things get slow, it gets scary. So it's tough. Sometimes every once in a while, you take a project you shouldn't, and I can tell you that every time you do, you regret it.
100%.
But it's exactly what you said in the earlier thing. It's tough. It's like, where do you get that work? And how do you convince people that you're worth the quality? And do you stand your ground? Well, you have to have first of all, you have to actually just be more than asking for the money. You actually have to have behind you the wherewithal, the product. And if you do, I'm sorry, the minute you start watering it down, you've just sold yourself and you can't come back from that.
Yeah, I think that when I was early in my career, I didn't understand all those things. And now I've become fairly obsessed with that supply and demand equation. And I've stayed small, so I don't need the work. And my goal is to never need any job ever, right? I would love to do this project so much, but if I just lost a job on a beautiful East Side home that the client just bought that deserves us, honestly, it's an absolutely amazing home. But they're like, we're going to go with the cheaper guy that the real estate agent referred. Okay, like, good luck.
Right.
I'm not going to, I used to do, is there somehow, some way? And then I would do the job and lose money and lose opportunity to do a great job for a great client. And over the hard lessons, you start to go, okay, I'll stay smaller and just get to pick and choose. And so now I have leverage when it comes to talking with clients. Like, I think we bring a lot to the table. And if that's not what you're looking for, like, hey, like, good luck, like, going forward. I'm sure you'll find someone that is a good fit for you. But I think what you said about, nobody can sell my work better than me. And it's tough. We don't do almost any new construction because the GC is the one who has to sell me to the client. And that's a tough deal when you've got a piece of paper with a bigger number.
I mean, I guess the first thing you'd have to make the argument to me, not here on the radio, is to say, is how much of a premium is it for you versus, the average decent quality painter? And if you say it's an extra 15 or 20%, then now that's entered into as a vocabulary item into my dialogue. And that's something that I can brush by certain clients way ahead of time as say, hey, would you like to see an option for an add-on for having a higher quality paint job? And I don't know how you do that. I think you need to start to have a fair reference point so that I'm not wasting your time. That I ask people this all the time about me. I mean, if I'm going to be double the cost, then like it's a waste of my time to get a proposal together. So I need to know ballpark what you are so I can look. My wife and I, are we in a Rolls Royce dealership? Just let us know. We have a tendency to like the most expensive thing in wherever we are, and we can't afford a Rolls Royce. We're way, but it's like that. You want to know where you are, and it's the same thing. I mean, and I can tell you that I'm more expensive than some architects, but I'm on level with the top architects in New England. And if I show you my set of drawings, a set of drawings for a 5,000-6,000 square foot house probably are going to be 120 to 130 pages long. And if you go and save a couple points with the other architect, their set of drawings is going to be 60 pages long, and you're going to have to go to a kitchen designer, and you're going to have to get a mill worker to help you out, and the specs are going to be lacking, whereas every single thing is included in my specs. So in fact, you're getting a better value per page by far by using me. So it's tough to make that argument, which is one of the arguments we make when we're being interviewed. When somebody is like, oh, no, I'm just going to save the 2 points. Okay, go save the 2 points. You're getting screwed.
And you're clearly not the type of person that we would like. It wasn't a good fit then if that's how you make your decisions.
Exactly. And that's really how people ferret me out. And another thing is that, part of the negotiating is that I think that, I mean, I hate to generalize, but I think that there are people out there, and I hate to say Donald Trump because it has nothing to do with his politics, but, the whole philosophy of that he wrote in his book where, you don't pay the last 10% and you give him 9 reasons why you're not doing it, and you let him decide if he's going to take you to court. In general, I've never had clients like that because I think they're ferreted out in the beginning because there are 2 things that I do that are different. I'm happy to share it with you. One is they're ferreted out in the beginning because they realize, okay, this isn't the sort of person that's going to be pulled along and get caught in a situation and get underwater. And the other thing is I tell clients from the very beginning, and it was like when I first started practicing, I tell everybody that's young on your call right now, whatever field they're in, look at a client and say, I'm a small person. I need to get paid like on time. And and I've never had one client look at me and go, I want 30 days. And they go, no, no, we understand you're a young artist, and and I say, if you get a big bill from me, and they'll start out low, and they're going to get big when we're doing working drawings. Say that means that my entire office worked in the project, which means I'm waiting for your check to pay for payroll. So, and it's like there's no 7 days, and our contract says it's pay upon receipt. So I said, when you get a bill, you send a check. And every single person is totally, nope, you're an artist, I love you, we're on board. And if you can get them on board, it sounds like, oh my God, who would say that? Like it emasculates you or something. No, you're taking a different angle, and you're putting yourself in a situation where they understand that no, it has to be that way. But here's the most important thing, is that if somebody gets 14 days, I bill twice a month. If somebody gets 14 days behind, I give them a call and go, Joe, is something wrong? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Or they'll go, well, I didn't want to say so. Well, all of a sudden I know I have a problem. So now I'm only one billing period behind, and we sit down and we make up, and we figure out you know what, I see your side. We'll redo that, or whatever it is. Oh, I want to make you happy. Or no, you're not seeing this right. And they're like, you know what, you're right, I'm wrong. Or I'm wrong, you're right. But you get past it, and you don't let it get to 2 or 3 or 4 billing cycles, when all of a sudden, you walk in and you're like, oh my God, this is a problem if I don't make this better. So, I mean, I can tell you that, again, in 30 years, I don't think I've had more than 3 people not pay me more than peanuts. And most of the people I've walked away and said, I'm not even fighting with them anymore. I don't want them. So, and that's an important lesson to learn. Don't be shy. Let people know up front that you need to work on this model to get this quality artist.
Yeah, I've learned to do that and just say, look, I'm more expensive because we don't have an ability within our company to cut a corner. I don't know where to, when to. We sure don't think about it ever. So if I need to budget accordingly, and there are many, many painters who will give you a number, and then they'll do everything and anything to meet that number, and it will sacrifice many things in order to get it, to meet their number.
Right.
And that's what I kind of tell them, is we're never going to sacrifice anything. You will always have it right. And if I have to redo it 6 times, I will redo it 6 times for you to have it right. But, I have to eat, and I have top craftsmen. I just had a conversation with a GC this week about it. He was telling me some bizarre stuff. I was like, here's why I cost this much, and I think it's worth it. But maybe I'm not. Maybe we shouldn't work together on the next one.
Exactly.
And as long as you can be very honest like that, what does your client, what is your sort of the sales process, if you would, what does that look like when a client wants to build a new home? Do they usually have the land already? Do they have an idea? Do they come to you? What does that look like?
I get so few clients and they come in so infrequently, and they're all from just so differently. I mean, a small portion of them comes from, they've reused me from before, and there's another portion of recommendations from other clients. And believe it or not, people find this hard to believe, a very large percentage of our new projects, our big projects that you see in our portfolio and our website, have come from the internet. Swear to God.
I believe that's where it comes from.
Over maybe 60%. If I walk around and show the projects, and it's funny because when we were originally designing the website, I mean, David built it, and we talked about what it was going to be. My original version was first of all, I didn't think who's going to buy art on the internet. Because I like everybody else had a Yellow Pages ad for a decade and a half before that, and never received a single telephone call. So, and that's because who buys art in the Yellow Pages? No one, right? And that's what we're selling, is good architecture, good design is art, right? So why would somebody buy art on the web? It was insane, but we need to do it. And the only reason I really sort of conceded, I'm like, well, it'd be nice to have my portfolio on the website so that when we have a call, from a client, we can go onto the website together and we can look through the website. The one thing that we did is we said, who are we going to market it to? So my feeling, even in the very beginning, was I don't care about people with slow computers. I care about the guy that's sitting in his Manhattan suite looking for a summer home in Newport. And he's sitting there with he's looking me up. And what we found is that people were going into my portfolio in their pajamas at night, literally, and that's where they look for their architect. They look on House, or they look in whatever, they do their searches for shingle style, and they're coming across, me, and they're ferreting through with their partners, who are going to be the one or two or three people they're going to interview. And many of them will come to me and go, geez, we went through the interviewing process and we really like you. And they did that through the internet in their PJs, and because they're looking through and reading about me. And then nowadays they're going to Facebook, where on Facebook I have more sort of construction pictures and being thought of how does this work, how does that work, sketches and things like that. And Instagram is more of the the glossy pictures. But if you go to both of those very different mediums, you're going to basically know everything about whether you like me or whether I'm a bum.
So I'm going to encourage you, hopefully from this, to double down on Instagram.
Oh no, there's no question, because it's funny as I'm now tracking. I've been tracking for the last 4 months, and I'm a lot of my friends and the whole thing. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's the future until something else comes along. It's the future of all advertising, and it's free for now. It's free advertising. And if it takes me 5 years to get up to 20, well, the other thing is a lot of my friends in the architecture field, when I say friends, I'm talking about nationally, that are doing similar level work with me. Some of them have websites that focus in on their travels, their art, and then they have a much broader group of people that they're exposing themselves to, so they can go up faster. And in my Instagram, it's all about hopefully falling in or appreciating the level of design that we're doing here at Andreozzi Architecture. So I never expect it to get up to that other level, but the branding that you have is unbelievable. The personal messages that I get, it's fantastic. It's about,
Yeah, I think what you described about how you're finding the website to bring all this stuff. Instagram is a much more intimate version of that, right? Everyone at this point, it's not too much of a competitive advantage anymore to have a nice website. Everyone has a nice website with pretty pictures. But like we talked about today, as David starts to turn the camera around and talk to people on a daily basis, and start to like really talk about what matters to you through your voice, and your passion shows through, that's the gold that people can see and go, oh, that's the guy I want, right? It can do so much more homework on you than they could even with your website. And look at the success the website has had. And then
oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But then the contractors and the subcontractors and the designers, it's a whole ecosystem of people on there, and then they'll start to post about your stuff, and it goes back and forth, and the network effect that happens from, because you're the real deal, and anyone who's the real deal does really well on Instagram, because all you have to do is just show what you're doing every day. You don't have to put on a show, you just put a camera on yourself.
Right.
So I think the more, and we can talk offline about some of the little detail stuff, but I think it's absolute gold for marketing, because it's just doing a documentary of you, and your company is the real deal. So it works so well. It's a beautiful way to market.
So my David Rizzo is going nuts, doing one post after another on Threshold, and he's challenging me, and he's throwing down the gauntlet, that because he knows you're the epitome of using process and explaining process to build Instagram and through networking. And what I'm espousing is that I'm leaving that process for Facebook, and I'm saying that my Instagram feed is a feed that needs to connect to, I'm sorry, wealthy art, I'm sorry, clients that appreciate art and architecture. And they are, when they scroll down the 20 pictures to decide whether they're going to like me on Instagram, if that's not a solid 20 or 30 pictures, they're going to the next person. And I guess he's the challenge is that am I being short-sighted for using an opposite or arcane philosophy?
I think you can do a hybrid. There are ways to curate your feed using highlights and your feed to do both, to educate and like what I didn't come up with this, but someone smart came up with educate and entertain, and the holy grail is a post that educates and entertains. But oftentimes, like my post today is real boring, got like no likes, but it's very targeted at a potential client that's going to see, oh, this is what goes into the process to get the final result. Now I'll post a video of us spraying black over white, and everyone will go, oh my God, this is amazing. And we'll have a bunch of views. So, but I think you can cultivate using your highlights at the top. That is a sort of a way of, because in the first 20 or 30 posts, it's all good. But what did I do 120 posts ago? No one's going to see it if I don't curate that with the highlights section at the top. And then stories is also a great way, I think might be a better way for you to show process.
I agree. I mean, that's my thinking is that I'm going to step on and start doing stories on a regular basis, weekly, from sites, walking around, talking about the shingle style, what it inspired me to design this detail back 200 years, going back to the picturesque movement of the 1600s, and just like things that people are like, wow, just that all came from that one little detail. And so that's my next jumping off point is to do stories. Exactly. But I mean, I do, again, and this is good to have this debate is like when you sit in, this is going to sound so obnoxious, when you sit in a fancy Porsche, or when you're buying a fancy race car or a Porsche or something, and you look at its lines and you look at its beauty, you're looking at it's the image of the sexiness of, and that's sort of that first moment where you get captivated, where you need to bring the person in, and then you can tell the stories about the air-cooled brakes and all the things.
The best way to this is probably for you is the captions are your process. So it's a beautiful picture that has a very detailed, I would go very detailed in your captions then, that breaks down the whole backstory to that detail in paragraphs. That will serve both interests then. It's the process and because I think oftentimes people don't give the captions enough credit. They don't really expound upon what's happening in this picture.
I'm struggling here. I can hear you. I'm struggling. I'm at 14%.
We're going.
So now I had to plug the phone in, but I have to have the phone because David asked me to get the phone off the Wi-Fi. So it's hanging out though. But I'm going. Let's go.
Okay, but so yes, I think just give us really detailed captions to your beautiful pictures.
Right.
That's that. Now that scratches my itch as a design fan, even. Like, well, it'll help build following with the nerds that want to understand what you do and follow along. And then it also gives me great perspective into how did you arrive at this beautiful detail?
I totally agree. I mean, I posted a picture yesterday or the day before of a stained glass door that we just designed. And I started out with the image of an island off of Ischia, which is in the Amalfi Coast. And then I showed a sketch of how I interpreted that island. And then I showed how it's going to be on this wine door here in Rhode Island. And one of the people that liked it were the owners whose parents live on the island of Ischia, why they are so bounded to the island, which I didn't go that deep into it. But I mean, so yeah, in that case, the process I think can work for architecture. Look, this is all new to me, and I agree with you. It's the future. I'll
That was
figure it
a
out.
post. I have been salivating. Took everything I had not to comment. God, I would love to coat that door. That door is amazing, and that post was amazing because it gave the whole story of the design and the beauty, and I love it. So keep it up.
Thank you.
And if you love
Go ahead.
just that door to a great finishing shop, we would love to coat that door.
Hey, let's dance. I mean, we've danced on one project.
We did.
Yeah, that's how we met, and that's awesome.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what that project looks like when it's all complete.
It's going to be interesting. I'm going to go live from it at some point, probably in the next week or two. The owner was here today, and I teased her that I was going to go live for the first time. So it's a project that is the very first project that started my career in 1988. You've seen pictures of it, or people have seen it if you go to my website. It's a very shallow, pitched, but big green trimmed shingle style house with a big chimney. And it's been renovated over the years many times. I've done many of the early renovations, and a later renovation was done in part by somebody else. And it's 30 years old now, and the new clients came over to me and basically started out by saying, hey, we want to change the paint color, and you originally designed the house. They're new owners. And that's what I just was brought over to go back in this house for the first time in 15 years to pick the paint color. And we ended up renovating the entire house, top to bottom. So it's been an interesting process. And in this case, the clients are they have extremely strong artistic personality, and it's coming through in so many ways, making the architecture theirs in a way that I think is what I love about architecture. My most successful architecture is when when owners bring my architecture to a place that I couldn't have brought it alone. And that's just like me and you teaming up. And we talked earlier about me teaming up with subs and contractors together. But when you work with a client and they go, no, like we designed a tea house. So the original design, to get it to the website, it's a beautiful open air tea house. When the original design was done, that's what was built, but it looked very New England and shingle style. And the owner said, I love it, but like, that's not Eastern. I mean, we need to change the details. And I'm like, you can't take my crown moldings away. Like, how dare you? I mean, I didn't say that, but like, it was my ego. I mean, like, how dare you? Like, and she pushed me to a place that I was really uncomfortable. And when it was done, it was something that I could have never done alone. And that's the greatest part about architecture, is working with clients doing that.
Yeah, there's nothing like the good clients.
Yeah.
They make it all worth it.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I had some stuff. Oh, I have a question for you. I don't know the answer to about your paint spec sheet and what that looks like, because I have seen some outdated paint spec sheets from architects that I want to just be like, I can start a business just consulting on paint spec sheets.
Okay, so first of all, I'm the wrong person to be talking to. It needs to be the guy in green, David Threshold. He can give you but he's not going to be able to type the answer. The reality is that from the very beginning, we started with a 50-page spec sheet that we used to readapt with all generic, especially the paint, 30 pages of paint specifications of how a painter should paint, which is really means methods and procedure, because I'm telling them to do it based on one paint manufacturer, and they could be using, in this case, actually pared it down to a performance spec methodology, which we do in all of our projects. So remember, we talked earlier, is that from the time that my schematic design is done, I'm only 15% into my design process. Basically, all the elevations are done, the plans are done. It's a very pretty picture. We might have a 3D model built of it, and everybody loves it, and there's a budget, right? So a ballpark budget. And at that point, I'm like, it's time to get the contractor on board. So as opposed to putting something out to bid, I will usually have them, the contractor, the owners, interview with usually 3 contractors that I think are going to be in their price range, and get them on board and have them pick that person based on working, in some cases, cost plus or however model they decide, but it's usually some version of cost plus. Um, and at that point, from that very point, we build a spreadsheet based on this little sketch, this drawing, that there's no beams, there's no structural engineer hasn't seen it. The landscape architect maybe hasn't been hired, but maybe it has just been hired. And we're already starting to develop this complex spreadsheet of, okay, let's put $75,000 in for the stairway. Let's put in $115,000 for exterior paint. I just made that number up. I don't know if that's high or low. Let's put, so
For
we're
your house,
building
this
this spread. It's probably low. For you, I'm only kidding. I'm kidding. That's just for the living room. So, so we're putting this spreadsheet together at that very early level. And as we go through the process, and the working drawings are being built, these things are going out to bid to painters. And at that point, painters are being hired and brought into the room, and they're actually part of this process. And so, and they're like you, in a case like you, they would say, okay, we decided we're going to go with John Smith. The bid is $200,000. But if you really want to go with the high gloss ceilings, that's going to be an add-on of $30,000 per room. Making that up. If you really want to use this paint, that's an upgrade of XYZ. But I'm working with people like you and the owner in most cases, and we're deciding it together. And so it's your opportunity to convince the owner. You already have the job. Now, you may say, I don't want to do it that way because I'm not going to do it at a middling level. And there's some jobs that I wouldn't do at the middling level. But if it's a situation where you bid it at a level that I'm comfortable at this level, and if we can upgrade here and there, and those are options that you'll allow me to sell, that's how my specification works, which means there is no specification. It's a performance specification. We agree on what the finished quality and product is going to be, and you're 100% responsible for the quality. And like you said, if you have to redo it 7 times, which really doesn't happen usually, I mean, you're the one that owns it.
It does. High gloss oil, sometimes it needs 5 coats.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that idea, and I feel like it's coming from your lack of ego in this whole process. I'm surprised. I didn't know a ton about your process, so it's awesome to hear how much you're tailoring this to giving the client what they want. It's a lot of what we do, and it's not always been my experience with architects that that's how it goes.
It definitely isn't.
Yeah.
I'm a rare bird. I mean, most people, it's a specification and you're out. I mean, and a lot of architects don't. I mean, a lot of owners naively will say, we don't need you for construction observation and bidding. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm not taking the job. So and there's 2 reasons for that. Number one is I want to be involved with every project from beginning to end, because the end of the project is when little things go wrong and you need to be there to represent yourself. But tying into that, my liability insurance requires or insists that I need to be there from the beginning to the end, because that's when lawsuits occur. So for me to be allowing things to go wrong and me not there, things become the architect's fault. So in general, that's just the way it is. If I'm not involved, unless I'm just involved with consulting at a very early level, I may agree to do that. Oh yeah, I'll come over to your house and I'll work you through the beginning, and then you can use you want to see the type of door and this and that, pay me and I'm gone. You can't go to the middle. You can't get halfway through a set of working drawings and then continue on your own. Getting back to what you were saying earlier, it's my confidence in these wonderful contractors that work for me that are all on my website cited. It's my confidence in them that they're working with the best people in the state. And I say to clients all the time, like, a builder wouldn't screw me because what are they going to screw me for one job and never get another job? I said, most builders finish a job of mine and say, that's the best set of working drawings that I've ever had in my life. David Brizolo, who's been on the site doing job administration, has done the best job administration 7 days a week. Sorry, David. I mean, through the entire process, answering telephone calls. So that level is what we want to be involved with. We want your next project. So they're not going to screw my clients with some ludicrous change order just to hit them for 50 grand. And what are you going to do about it? Now, I say that same dynamic occurs between the contractors and you. And so when they have you in line and I'm hiring them and they're hiring you, they're going to pull you in the back room and go, we have a problem here. And you're going to go, okay, let's make it better. And there's not going to be this, because that's what we do for each other. If you have a problem or the contractor has a problem, we fix it together and we make it better because we're all on the same team. Even though, again, as I said earlier, we do know our roles. My role is to represent the client at the end of the day.
Yeah, you've given me great hope that one day we'll paint one of your projects. I've not had, I don't know what it is, but I haven't had a lot of those types of experiences with GCs. Most of the GCs that we do stuff with are ones that have had bad experiences in the past and just want to know that the painting is going to be done right. And when they have particular clients, the clients who have seen good, a lot of times they come from New York or, they've come from a place where or Greenwich, and they've seen really high quality finishes, and so that's their standard. And like when I first started doing fine paints of Europe in Rhode Island, everyone was like, dude, what are you doing? Nobody wants that. Nobody knows what it is. It's just more expensive, and there's no demand for it.
Right.
And they were right. Like, I had to do a lot of work to build any demand for it. We've moved to Boston because there's just like this amazing built-in demand for very, very high quality finishes. It's just like, it's almost like it's just a standard out there in the zeitgeist. Like,
so, I mean, I started out in the mid 80s. I was working for Choprino Wharton in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Unbelievable stuff they do.
They're great. I mean, at the time I was there, it was 1985, 86, 87. And I had the opportunity to work for all three, Rob Reno, Alan Shope, and Bernard Wharton, B. Wharton. I actually started working for Rob Reno and then came over because he had just left. But we were working, doing some of the best shingle style architecture in the country. We were competing against Robert Stern. It was an amazing, truly amazing experience. And actually, like right now, the firm still exists, doing great work. The partners are actually gone now, and I feel so lucky to have been, part of that process. But my point being is that there's so much more money in New York, and I can tell you that because, again, I'm been involved nationally with the AIA and most recently the ICAA, and I'm involved as president of the local chapter. I'm involved a lot in New York. I've become friendly over the last 15 or 20 years with the very top architects in the country. And the ones, the projects, the philanthropy, the patrons in New York City blow away anything that you or I have ever seen. There's a small portion of that that are in Boston, and there's much less of it in Providence. And unfortunately, Rhode Island is losing more and more of those people every day because you want to talk about local politics for the last 15 years? No, I don't either. But the reality is that for local political reasons, anti-bad guys, big not loving, not building, bringing in businesses and nurturing businesses, all of my clients have moved and taken up, most of my clients have either moved to Florida or taken up residency in Florida. So what happens there? A majority of them. That means that all of the money that goes to local philanthropy, the arts, whether it be art or music, is all getting pulled away now to other communities in Florida, and it's being divvied or eliminated from local Rhode Island. And that includes high end people that are on that higher end and appreciate sort of the level that you're talking about. I'm sorry, it's sad to say, but I think that as I see you doing the projects in Boston, I think it's the smartest thing in the world. It's something that we've done projects in Boston. We'd love to do more projects in Boston. Every time we do one, I mean, it's so much fun. There's just so much more of the clientele that we work with is concentrated there a lot more than here.
Yeah, I referred a client to you not long ago. One day, I'm not sure if he's contacted you yet,
Oh my
but
goodness.
He's a Boston guy with plenty of money to do something really beautiful, and he's like, well, who should I call? And I was like, I know the guy.
Well, I mean, I think that maybe what you need to do is take architects or build and the high end builders and say, will you just come through a project that I finished and just look at the level? And this is a weird thing to be talking about with people listening. I'm sorry,
I know.
but um, and actually say, hey, I know that maybe it's only 1 out of 10 projects that I might be a good fit for, but that 1 out of 10 projects where you think the client might be open to moving up, I'd like you to include me in the mix on that one. And I have no expectation of winning it. I know I'm going to be higher. My only opportunity might be if they're slightly interested is for me to do a sales pitch. And if they don't want to do it, that's fine. There's no sales pitch required. But if they ask about it, give me the opportunity to explain. And maybe, but I think the important thing might be is because I haven't walked through one of your finished projects, is to, somebody that's in my world that is built, like I said, with a hammer and built furniture when I was younger and built things and knows good finishes and bad finishes and orange peel and things like that.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I tell you the story. Side story. I built a piece of furniture. I took furniture making. I told you at Rhode Island School of Design. So I built this one piece of furniture. It was a coffee table in class that ended up getting picked to be chosen and going to a gallery in New York City, which was really kind of cool for a youngster at RISD. It was going up with a lot of grad student projects and everything. But when I was finishing it in my apartment, my college apartment, with a couple of beers on the side. So I'm doing lacquer for the first time. So I went to Providence or wherever you buy lacquer, knew nothing about it. And the guy set me up with cans of real lacquer and whatever the primer I used, set the primer up and sanded it down real nice. And I started putting that lacquer on in the lightest coat, and I put it on too. I just couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop myself. And I watched this piece of furniture that was the most beautiful thing that I'd ever seen just start to orange peel and sag. And I wanted to like blow my brains out. I had to wait for it to dry, strip the entire piece of furniture. It start over. They're like Obi-Wan Kenobi, but now you'll do it with patience, my son.
Yes, that is the number one thing we tell everyone in the company, especially because we work with a lot of oil. It's patience. There's no shortcuts here. You got to be patient.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then in the new paints, and again, I'm not a painter. I just hear this. You can tell me and the people, the C2s and the old, the products that you're using. I mean, they're put on, from what I understand, very thick, and you have to let them sort of sag down. So there's a whole different technique there, right?
Nowadays, yeah, they want to be put on at a heavier mill build, not worked as much, and allowed to lay down.
Yeah.
We use a lot of oil for trim. Like, I'm still an oil guy. Oil will always be the best, and as long as we can still buy it, we're selling it to clients.
And there's no problem if in 5 or 10 years that oil, which is built as a, whatever, as an enduring finish, needs to be touched up, painted, addition onto, and that product doesn't exist by legal code, short of like smuggling it in from another country. Can you prime it and go over it, or?
You can always go over it, but the manufacturer, Fine Paints of Europe, has done a lot to, I think, ensure the longevity of import. It's imported as a marine finish and as an assign enamel. And they've tweaked the formula just a little bit to be. I'm not super concerned that it's going to be completely gone anytime soon.
That's good.
Because it's a much more robust, longer lasting finish. And if you do less painting over the long term, some would argue that that's better as far as the environment goes. And there's also starting to be some research that these low VOC paints, although they don't off-gas VOCs for a very long time after, they may off-gas other chemicals that we just don't test for. And so at least with the oil enamels, we are controlling our off-gassing while we work. We have air machines and respirators, and it's controlled. And then when it's done, it's done.
Right.
So
well, I get to, all somebody has to do is walk the streets of Edgartown, or more specifically Nantucket, and they look around and go, I don't know why everything looks so beautiful, but like everything looks so beautiful. And then you look around and like every third house is being painted. Like, I mean, touched up, I mean, coated again. I mean, and I don't even say that in a negative way, because it's just everything. It's like a museum there. It's like an outside museum, the level of finish that you get when you're using the products that you use.
Yeah, and that's what they use in Europe everywhere. And it's just a standard. You would always think you'd want to use the best quality paint when the labor is 80 to 90% of the project. Only in America have we taken price point of paint and broken it down in such a way where all they're doing is adding more filler to the paint to lower the price, which is going to sacrifice longevity and aesthetic quality. So we just use the best paint you can find. And oftentimes that does mean it's a higher performance engine that has capacities that might warrant more extra prep work and more money even in the labor. But even if you keep the labor exactly the same and just change the product, it's a massive difference.
And so what is is it approximately the same amount of labor if you, again, forgetting that prep stuff, or it has to be a little bit, really?
It's slightly more, but they have a water-based line of wall paints that I got to show you some of the wall paints Fine Paints makes. They're not that much more expensive. And if you did make them a paint spec, it's night and day. I mean, I have clients who like rub their cheeks on the walls and make their friends rub their cheeks on the walls, and it's a latex water-based paint. But it's, and it's maybe it's $150 a gallon instead of $70 a gallon.
Yeah, but like, what is that? Like that, what does that mean to your total bid? It's not a lot.
I mean, on one of your jobs, the paint spec, the paint cost of the total paint job is 15% ish. 20% max of the paint job is the paint cost. I would say usually it's like 15%, maybe less on the bigger jobs.
So by adding 7.5%. Oh, no, did you say add 50%? No, by adding 15% to the total cost of the job, you end up with a product that's twice as good.
Yeah. So just simply switching out the paint, what ends up happening, why I get to be even more expensive is what ends up happening is you have such a high quality finish that it might warrant more prep work. We always, at our standard is just going to be multiple coats of primer before top coat, because now you can sand between and it'll get you a smoother finish. Right. And it just starts to but all things being equal, it's so much better. But a lot of times what ends up happening is you end up wanting to do more prep work because you can get more out of the gallon of paint. But it doesn't have to always be that way.
I love that. I love the story, and I certainly love the product. But getting back to the model at which you have to convince somebody or teach somebody the importance of that product. I can't think of a good analogy where I might say, hey, listen, I have artists that do stained glass, and I can do custom stained glass, and it's basically, you're going to be putting art all over your house anyway. So how about if we incorporate some stained glass into your wine room door? Or in another post that people have seen recently, if they go to my Instagram page, is that we did an entire kitchen, and the entire kitchen is stained glass. And it's like nothing you've ever seen in your life. but that was a client, an amazing client, patron of ours, that was first of all agreed that, okay, I love the idea. I did something similar to that in another project, but not like that at all. Um, I love the idea. And then on top of that, we brought in a lighting designer, a lighting that brought in special cold cathode lighting that like is put in museums, that lights from the top. So at night, the stained glass ceiling becomes the light for the entire room. And during the day, the skylights above become the light for the room. And I can't wait to photograph it professionally and share it with everybody. But it's on my point is that if you're there, if you're given the opportunity um, to lobby for those qualities, in whether it be in the art side or as in Vitruvius's triangle, it would be firmness. So you'd be the firmness, the engineering side. If you have and it's no different than, hey, do you want to have your floors a little stiffer so there's less bounce in them? It's going to be more than code, but it's going to cost you a little bit of extra money. Everybody says, yeah, sure. You want sound insulation in between the rooms? Everybody says, yeah. You want to use a better, more expensive insulation, spray insulation? Most people say, yeah. Well, here's the problem you and I have that we're faced with is that when I started out, we had a good quality contractor and good quality materials, and then you had American Standard, you had Kohler, and you had like basic appliances, Formica, and a little bit of stone, and there just wasn't the products around. And the opportunities now that people see again on Pinterest and on House, whether it be door hardware you can easily spend $30,000 on door hardware and hinges just alone. That's insane, right?
Yeah.
Look, you can't. You can easily spend $2,500 for a kitchen faucet. Like, that's insane. You can easily spend $4,000-5,000 for a kitchen sink. That's insane. And so at some point, like, there's so many options, and then people are like, I don't understand. I saw this. It's just a simple house. Yeah, but we weren't exposed to black walnut wide plank floors that everybody wants right now. And all of those little things add up, and it makes it difficult on us because it's easy for that budget to skyrocket, and then you have to decide where you're going to save your money. Personally, I wouldn't save it on the quality of the paint or the quality of the windows, or the quality of the craftsmanship, but you have to save it someplace.
Not beauty, but joy. What's the third one? Firmness.
Commodity, firmness, and delight. That's the Americanized version.
I would also argue that our paint jobs add delight as well.
Oh, there's no question. Oh no, I mean that's the sexy part.
Yeah. So I have 52 seconds left on this thing. So
okay,
cut off before that.
Okay, so what I say, but
I'm going to end this. We'll go right back on, and we'll just wrap up.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Bye.